Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to my first show on my channel. It's all black and white TV. I'm joined today by Carl. How are you today, Carl?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, Tony?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Managed to get my intro sorted out yet, but I'll have that sorted in plenty of time. Hopefully before the next show comes along. But yeah, so today we're going to talk about Eddie Howe's only been in the job less than 12 months, and we can see how much progression's already been made in the club under Eddie Howe's stewardship. And that's what we want to talk about today. And then we'll have a little match preview towards the end ahead of tomorrow's game at the Tottenham Stadium against Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah.
Results are sort of going for us at the moment. Liverpool lost today, which is a great result. And, nobody probably saw that result coming, to be fair. And yeah, and let's hope other results go our way. Let's hope Man United and Chelsea draw later on, and we win tomorrow. We'll end up in fourth place.
Yes.
So yeah, so if you like what you see, then hit those like buttons, please. That helps set the channel up in the search settings. Also, if you haven't subscribed, come on and subscribe, please. It's free to do so. And also there'll be a bell button there. If you hit that, that'll tell you every time I come on live. I'll go to some comments first. I like coffees in first. How was Jurgen Klopp on the touchline? I thought he was red carded last game. Well, I didn't see the game because unfortunately I've been watching the cricket.
It's because I think he's got until a certain date to appeal or to at least come back, and then after that time, that's when I think you'll get a touchline ban.
Yeah. Oh well, let's hope he gets a touchline ban because he needs one. I think hopefully pipe him down a bit. Mighty Mag says, first show, sure this is going to be a success, Tony. Thank you very much, Mighty Mag. Thank you for coming along. And Rawley, hi, Tony. Looking forward to a great show. Thanks very much, mate. Yeah, thank you for coming along. And Paul, afternoon, Tony and Carl. Hope you're both well. Have a cracking show. How are you, the lads? Yeah, absolutely. Let's hope so. Paul says afternoon to both. Afternoon to you as well, Paul. Hope you're well. And Chipaz, hey, afternoon. Hope you're well as well, Chipaz. So when Eddie Howe came into our club last year, we were sitting bottom of the Premier League and, no wins. And morale was very low after Steve Bruce went. And, the takeover had come along, but obviously it was where we were sitting in the Premier League. Eddie come in, first game. Couldn't happen. You couldn't make it up. You got COVID and couldn't sit on the touchline. So obviously Jason Tyndall had to do it, and he had to message him from the hotel. We got a 3-3 draw that day. When the first win did come along against Burnley, we were all sort of relieved then, but we knew we had a tough December coming up. What was your take on Eddie Howe's first days at the club?
Yeah, I think it was obviously a change, and he obviously had a lot of work to do because he inherited an unfit, disorganised side, really. But obviously, I think showing what he'd done, everybody will probably agree that when Steve Bruce was there, he had more days off than actual training days. So the fact that when Eddie Howe come in, he was there like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning with his staff, and he didn't leave till after midnight. So that just showed straight away that there was a shift in mentality in terms of who was at the top. So I thought he started off really well in terms of what he was doing and setting down his rules of engagement going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I say, the December fixtures were a bit tough when you think about it, because we had Man City, Liverpool. Against Liverpool, we could see we were probably unlucky. We were probably done over by Mike Dean on that game. We took the lead, then I think Jota scored the equaliser, but it shouldn't have been an equaliser because the game should have been stopped before then when there was a head injury to Isaac Hayden. The game should have been stopped. And then also the third goal, Alexander Arnold got. Shelvey would have got to that ball had Mike Dean not run in front of him deliberately. And it was a good strike, but, the thing is, Shelvey might have got to that ball and stopped that going in. So, it was one of them with Mike Dean. It's always about him, I suppose. But so we lost there. We got beat off City. We got thumped off City that time. So and we got beat off Leicester as well. We did manage to draw against Man United, although we could potentially say they robbed us because they shouldn't have won. They shouldn't have got a draw in that game. And if Maxi had took that chance just after half time, 2-0 up, we would have coasted that game. And then thankfully towards the end of that month, we had COVID come up, so we couldn't do and injuries, so we couldn't do Everton and we couldn't do Southampton.
Which we're crying, expecting, they're going to have £200 million worth of new talent. That's not fair. This, that, and the other. And obviously, we know what happened in the reverse fixtures when they actually did come back around.
Yeah, I mean, we had that unfortunate FA Cup game with Cambridge where we lost 1-0. Their goalkeeper played a blinder that day. It's one of them, you get a team that comes from League One in the FA Cup. They're coming in a big stadium. They put on a bit of a show, and their goalkeeper has a blinder.
To be fair, though, Tony, I think that was probably a blessing in disguise. That because it quickly emphasised that there was obviously a lot of work to do, and I think it was Trippier's debut, wasn't it? Full debut. So I think in a way it was a blessing in disguise in terms of what was to follow from that, I think, in terms of the run that we then went on. So sometimes these things have a weird way of actually working in our favour. Now, obviously, we've got a habit in the past of getting knocked out by lesser sides and things like that. But I think on this occasion, looking back, I do think it was a bit of a wake-up call and a bit of actually a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, although at part time, I mean, I travelled up for the game, so I was disappointed that we'd lost. But when you get home and you think about it, or you're sitting on the train on the way back and you're thinking about it, and you sort of think, well, do you know what? Do we really want a cup run? The main thing we need to do is stay in the Premier League. That's what we need. That's the must, And then we played Watford, and I was up at that game. So disappointing against Watford. I mean, for them to score 2 minutes on the end, João Pedro, it was just a sucker punch, and it just felt, hang on a minute, we need to be beating teams like Watford, and
we're in and around us at the time, weren't they? And I think that was the first time after all the hype of Eddie Howe and the takeover happening. That was the first time that I actually personally started having doubts that would we have enough time to turn it around. And then, as I say, pretty much straight after that, we went on an unbelievable run, and people started coming. Well, we had the game against Norwich again. That was something that you just thought, for God's sake, go 1-0 up, 10 men down, and then they obviously score a late equaliser. But what it then did do is it created an unreal moment where Joe Linton ended up coming in midfield, and then we know what's happened since with him. I think it was, as I say, you've sometimes fate, isn't it, in terms of what's going to happen, and him getting brought into the middle. Him getting brought into the middle is ultimately one, it probably saved his Newcastle career, and two, it's created a bit of a monster who's got a real chance, if he gets fit before the World Cup, to actually get into the Brazilian national team.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking last night to Pete about this, and what I was saying was, when you think with Joe Linton, when he was brought into the club for 40 million by our former owner, Mike Ashley, he brought him into the club thinking he was a striker. And what he was hoping for was Joe Linton would go out there, smash 20-odd goals in the season, and then maybe somebody like Man City might have said, oh, we'll give you 80 million for him. Take the 80 million and make his money. But it didn't work like that. And poor, and it made Joe Linton look bad. And he's never really been a striker, Joe Linton. So,
no, not at all. In his past career, he's played wide left of a front three. So he's always been wide and cut back in. I mean, the lad's got bags of skill in terms of stuff he's got. Now he's added obviously that competitive midfield part of his game, and he's effectively like a box-to-box player. He can go forward, he can sit deep, he breaks up so much play. He dispossesses. He's got a great recovery statistics in terms of breaking it up, and and those defensive style qualities for someone that was apparently a number 9.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's been a breath of fresh air. I mean, it's Eddie Howe. He knows how to get the best out of players. That's the thing. I mean,
yeah,
he's got Sean Longstaff or sort of thing back to where he used to be, or getting back to where he was under Rafa.
Yeah.
He lost 2 years of football under Steve Bruce, who just didn't really care, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, we had Joe Linton playing well. Then in that January window, we also brought in obviously Dan Burn, which a lot of people were shocked at. But it was another solid Premier League signing. That was the thing. Matt Targett, another one. It was unbelievable what Phil had done to him, because he was that Player of the Year before, and they dumped him in favour of Luca Dean, who we were after, but he chose Villa, and thankfully he did choose Villa, because I don't think Luca Dean's that great, to be honest, since he's gone to Villa. And we got Targett on loan, and Targett did well. We brought Bruno in. We were all shocked by bringing Bruno in, because we knew the likes of Arsenal, Juventus, and all them were looking at him.
Yeah.
And he chose to come to us, even though we were in the relegation zone at the time. But he signed for us, and he put his career on the line doing that. But what a signing he was, what a great signing he's proved to be, Bruno. And then we lost, obviously, Trippier as well in that time for 12 weeks with a metatarsal when he had to come off against Villa in the second half. So things weren't for us. And obviously in that window as well, we signed Chris Wood in January as well, which we can look at that and say a £25 million is a mistake. But then he did score 2 goals, which won us games. So I suppose he's paid a little bit of that back.
If you go back to the players that you just mentioned, and I'll just raise a couple of points on them. So you mentioned Kieran Trippier. Obviously, ultimately he's the team captain when he plays, because Lascelles won't get a look in very much now. But what he's brought to the club in terms of being that first major signing under the new ownership, the leadership qualities that he has, it allows other people to express themselves. It gets people thinking, this guy's pretty much done it all. He's played for England. He's went to another country. He's won the title over there with Atletico Madrid. But I think even when he did get injured, Tony, I think how often it was people were slagging him off in the paper saying, why is Kieran Trippier, why is he on the coach going when he's injured? Why is he always with them? And I think Eddie Howe said numerous times that he's there as a leader, and he's there to help. And I think he's instilled this unbelievable camaraderie within the club. Just by if you watch him in games, he never really loses it. He's so calm. He's respectful to the referees. The referees listen to him. He even gets listened to by the opposition players, because he's so professional in how he is. Dan Burn, for me, I think he was probably, in terms of the games he played last season, I think he's probably our best signing in terms of what he brought. He brought a steely resolve to the back line that we've not seen for a while, and he can actually pick a pass out. So I really rate Dan Burn, and he's doing something well this season to keep Matty Targett out. Yeah, and then obviously Bruno's Bruno. You know what he done? He believed in the project. So to say, I'm sure the money that he's getting is a good package. But I think Chris Wood, I'll probably go against what you said then. I think he gets an unfair bit of criticism, and I tell you something right now, that run that we went on, Chris Wood might not have scored, but he was integral to everything Newcastle done, because we didn't have Callum Wilson, and we're playing to Chris Wood's strengths, as in, if you look at the amount of aerial duels that he won in that period, he was top. He brought other people into the midfield. Joe Willock went on a good run of scoring a couple of goals, and he brought people into the game. So when we've got our first fully fit, if we ever do get that this season, our fully fit 11, Chris Wood wouldn't be in it. He'd be third, fourth choice striker. However, last season he done really well in terms of what he was meant to be, and obviously Howe was more than happy with his contribution.
Yeah, I go along with that. I mean, he did do well aerially.
It's not his fault, 25 million, Tony. It's not his fault.
No. That's the release clause.
We took him off Burnley at the end of the day, and they ended up going down. So
yeah,
it was more of a tactical, and we did need a striker because we had nobody.
Yeah. And obviously his replacement at Burnley, Wout Weghorst, didn't even set the Premier League alight, did he? So
and he left.
Yeah, he's gone to Besiktas. But yeah, I mean, it was what we needed at the time. We needed a striker, and we had to get somebody in. But you want to get somebody who's got Premier League experience again, because you can bring a striker in from abroad, but he might not hit the ground running. And then that's the worry you've got. Where at least, like you say, with Chris Wood, he knows the Premier League. He knows the objectives in the Premier League. So he did what he had to do. And and then you had that Southampton manager who decided to say, well, Newcastle can't play their new signings against us because the game was postponed before they signed those players. Well, that was never, ever going to happen. And to take that to the Premier League and even tell them that, the Premier League must have laughed at him when he walked away, because they must have thought, what is this guy on? And
then guess what happened?
The two players who were signed.
Bruno with an unbelievable, wild, whatever that is, like a back heel flick.
Yeah.
Thing. And then Chris Wood's header was brilliant crossing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shelvey cross and Wood straight in the top corner to equalise, and then Bruno in the second half, that backflip past Forster. But it just highlighted how, and then we just went on this amazing run. And then at the end of last season, we didn't just stay up, but we stayed up by a huge margin. We actually finished 11th. And, to think that we'd gone a run without 14 games at winning to then finish 11th place in the Premier League, it's never going to be done again unless you get somebody who gets a mega rich owner, comes in the but you've got to spend. It's not just about spending the money, though. It's about spending the money wisely. And in that January window, I think we got it absolutely bang on, because most of them players were the only one who didn't have Premier League experience was Bruno. So
but that's what you needed at the time, Tony. That's what you needed at the time. You needed people who could breathe some confidence within the team that had suffered a couple of years of Bruce Ball, of having a bad ownership in Mike Ashley and all the rest of it. All of a sudden, you can't just get rid of that overnight. And I'll come on to some bits about why I think we're playing better this season in a while. But it does take a while. It does take a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and you look at Eddie Howe again with his man management. He kept Bruno on the bench for a few games, brought him on for little cameos, 10 minutes here, 5 minutes there. And that was all just to get him up to speed, how the Premier League goes along. And then once he got in the team, that was it. It's
much faster than any other league, really, in terms of aggression and pace and everything like that. So, yes, the boy's got bags and bags and bags of talent, but for him to see and witness it from the touchline and then get these 10 minutes at a time and things like that, I think it was a masterstroke. And you look, it sort of probably whetted the appetite as well for our fans and also people who are watching from afar, like the statistics guys and the people that work for the broadcasters, because you look at these stats that he was getting in 10, 15-minute cameos, they were right up there in terms of his ball possession wins, his pass completion, it was just unreal. And he started, I went back up to Newcastle for the Leicester game. And I was in a pub in Whitley Bay watching the game. And I don't think I've ever jumped as high as I ever did when Bruno scored that header, that diving header for the win right at the end. It was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. It was a great goal as well. Worked on the side, won back by Target, and played it through to Willock. And then obviously, yes, the ball got a deflection when it crossed it in, but for him to just dive for that and put it in the back of the net, the top corner, it was an unbelievable goal, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, thankfully it was at the end where I was sitting, because I was sitting in Milburn Paddock, and you know,
great goal. Great goal.
With the other half, and she even said, you know, I mean, the thing is, it wasn't just the header though, but it was the run from Willock as well. We took the ball past Tielemans, and then Tielemans tried to catch him up, but as he did catch him up, that's when Willock put the crossover, you know, bang, diving header at the top corner. But when you think of the run that Bruno made, he must have run about 80 yards to get to that ball as well. He busted gut to get that ball.
He was pretty much last one in the box. And then as the ball took the deflection, went in the air, bang. Man City, you've just scored as well, I think. Penalty.
They've just scored after.
Yeah. Look, I'm just watching it replay now on VAR. It looks like De Bruyne has put the ball in, Haaland's been fouled, and they've given him a penalty.
Oh, well, that'll be 1-0 then.
I'm slightly behind here. I think someone's just put on, Mighty Mag's just put on.
Right. But, I'll delve into a few comments anyway. LA Coffee says, don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. Thank you very much, LA Coffee. And he goes on to say, Tony should get a Newcastle shirt for Yoda. Yeah, you love Yoda, don't you? So I'll have to have a look at that one. Mighty Mag says, see, Eddie saying this window coming up won't be like the spending we just had due to fair play. If we have Europe in our grasp, can you see the club going for it? Well, Eddie could just be saying that because how many times has Eddie Howe said stuff to the press, and it doesn't,
the thing is, Tony, I think people get lost in what financial fair play actually means. Newcastle could spend 500 million quid in January and not break financial fair play, because you've got depreciation and contracts and how you pay for these players. Mike Ashley wanted to pay for them up front, and he would always try, and it's actually worked in our favour that he was so tight, and he did pay for people up front because it's give us that, and the money that he made from profits, it's actually worked in our favour. But these aren't stupid. These guys, the people that run this club, like I don't think we will go crazy, but I tell you, I think if there's a sniff, a whiff of us challenging top 4, top 6, I think we will spend again. But I don't know if we'll go for a striker. I personally believe we might end up going for a winger stroke central midfielder, someone like Morrison at Leicester.
Madison, you mean? Yeah.
Madison even at Leicester, sorry.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was thinking. I mean, well, if there's a deal there to be done for Madison, I think we'll go in for him without a doubt.
Yeah.
It might be one of those that we go in with an offer and say, right, we'll take Madison and Tielemans off you because Tielemans only have 6 months on his contract. So it might be one of them where we say we'll grab both of them, because Tielemans ain't a bad player to have in your squad either. You know, it's another midfielder, and
he's not
signing that Mudryk.
He's not signing a contract. He said I don't think he signed a contract either. But I think if you look at, if you look at Madison, they've offered him a contract. They've offered Tielemans a contract as well. I don't know if he'd signed it, but if you go back to the financial fair play and things like that, you look at what Everton, Haaland scored, by the way, and you look at Everton, what they spent in that period of time when they had the Usmanov, I think it was, the Russian, and Shaqiri. Who was he called? Is it the other guy? Shaqiri, or whatever?
Was it Kroenke?
No, the actual owner of Everton.
Oh, of Everton, sorry. Oh, Moshri.
Moshri, that's the one.
Yeah.
But if you look at them and you look at Leicester, in terms of the spending and what they've done, obviously Leicester are in a situation now where they need to sell before they can buy. Everton are quite similar as well. And for me, this is because they've done it the opposite way to what Newcastle did. Leicester, when they won the league, they had all of a sudden had all this money, they had all this attraction from a sponsorship deal. They just went bang, 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 and tried to sign 40, 50 million pound players or whatnot. Everton were just throwing money around, and they didn't have that structure at all. And you look now at Newcastle and you look at the structure that they've got. This team is a shadow of its former self. The squad and the ownership is a shadow of its former self in terms of when they had Lee Charnley is the only person there, and then Mike Ashley and his little cronies. There was about 3 of them. Whereas now, you look at the team, you know, there's a good 10 strong in terms of in key positions. Where Everton, when they were spending all that money, Everton basically were doing a review of their infrastructure in terms of different people in roles. And even the Everton fans that I spoke to were like, what the hell is going on? Like, there's no leadership from the board. I think we've now got, well, I'm being a bit biased here, but in terms of the leadership team that we've got, forget about the money for a second. We've got probably one of the best in the league in terms of Eales, in terms of Ashworth, Howe and his team and what he's bringing in. We've got new commercial guys coming in as well, the one at Arsenal. So a long-winded answer regards to financial fair play. We could be a lot more we will be a lot more creative than most clubs, I firmly believe. And you just watch I believe some of the contracts that will get announced in the summer and next season, which will be quite lucrative.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the thing is, we've got like a lot of sponsorship to come in yet. You know, and I mean, you know, we can spend, like you say, we can spend good money on players, because if you're paying them by installments as well, that works in your favour. And you know, I know the likes of Ashley likes to be up front thinking he was doing the right thing, but sometimes it doesn't work that way. But yeah, for how tight he was at the club and everything, he left the club in a good footing, which is, you know, not a bad thing. And
I mean, if you just, let's live in an alternative universe for a second and just say, like, what happens if the people who own the club now didn't take it over? How long can you sustain what Mike Ashley was actually physically doing? You can't sustain that, Tony. And they couldn't give 10,000 season tickets away. You can't. There's probably more than 10,000 people wanting match tickets now. You know what I mean? So it's totally polar opposites. You can't just keep on going along.
No, if he was still in charge now, we wouldn't be in the Premier League. We'd be in the Championship. Yeah. And I don't think we'd even be at the top end of the Championship, if I'm honest. So, you know, but thankfully fortunes changed and the new ownership came in, and we are where we are now. And I Like Coffee says, what season shirt is Carl wearing?
I think someone answered it, isn't it? I think someone's put it in the comments as well. It was the 93, 95. I've got one of my favourite players on the back as well. If you can see that.
Robert Lee.
What a player.
Paul says, when the manager has energy and passion for the team, it filters down to the whole team and backroom staff, and then in turn the team plays well on the pitch. Yeah, absolutely. Spot on, mate. Mighty Max says, Lascelles is finished. Any moral, he should look for another club and play time. Yeah, well, you know, he will be gone eventually. It'll just take time. I think with Lascelles, because he's club captain, isn't he? And you know, you can't sort of like, because people are like, well, why don't they just take the captaincy off him? But if you do, you could disrupt the morale in the dressing room. So keep him as club captain.
He's still a likable bloke for all the guy's playing to his ability. You can't criticize any player that playing to their ability. The difference now is that last season, the season before versus where we are now, that level has gone up. So the caliber of player has also gone up. So, you know, we look at who we've let go this season. We've not received a transfer fee, Tony. All we've done is let people go on loan who have got 12 months left of their contract to get the wages off our books. But if you look at this team now, I'm not going to mention any players' names. I think it's unfair to you know, emphasize certain players, but there will be certain players in this squad now who will next season, at the end of this season, will potentially be sold, and we will actually be able to get some transfer fees for it. We won't be able to get big transfer fees because I don't think we'll want to sell players who could bring in a big transfer fee, because that's just going to destabilize how we're moving forward. But there's going to be people who have only been given 1-year contracts who are injured again by all accounts. Paul Dummett's one of them, unfortunately. Apparently he's injured again. And he's been injured over the last couple of seasons. Matt Ritchie's another one who's injured. So it's one of them.
I think the way we're doing it is we're doing it sensibly, because we're just eventually going to get these players that are at the club that, you got the likes of ourselves who played back in the Championship when we came up. So these sort of players will be phased out the club eventually, but it'll be over a certain length of time, but it won't be instant, because if you got rid of, say, 10 players, then you've got to bring 10 players in, but then you've got to hope them 10 players gel, and you're not guaranteed that to happen. We've seen that with Forest. They brought in 22 players. So you've got to balance it, and we've done it very sensibly, and we've bought well. And even some of the pundits are saying now that we are buying well as a team. So just shows you how good our owners have actually been, and it's a breath of fresh air.
We've got 14 years of real lack of investment to eradicate. You're not going to do that over 2 transfer windows. It will take, it's going to take at least 4, 5, 6 transfer windows before you then start bringing in players and being able to sell the players who you're going to start getting decent money for them again, because we're not a selling club anymore. Yes, we might have to let a big player leave to join someone like Real Madrid. I hate to say it, but like a Bruno, for argument's sake. But if he was to go in 18 months' time, 3 years' time or whatever, you'd want to demand, if he's still playing at the level he is now, you'd get over 100 million or close to 100 million for him. But you don't want to do that because it affects the project. But then you just have to weigh it up, don't you, in terms of commercially, how do you get around financial fair play?
Yeah, I think the likes of Bruno, if, say, he stays here, I think he will stay here. If he's here till he's about 28, 29 maybe, and he's won a few things with us or whatever, then if somebody like Madrid or whatever comes calling, then maybe say, yeah, okay. When you let him go, then you sort of like think, well, we've had the best years of Bruno.
Yeah.
And he's moving on, but we can bring somebody else in who is just as good as him. Exactly. So there's always that. But, he's invested in this project, so I don't think he wants to go. I think he said there was a conversation with Madrid, but that's as far as it was, a conversation, nothing else. And, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a new extended contract.
Oh, he will. He'll get an extension of his contract and he'll get a pay rise. And I think whilst we're talking about Bruno, congratulations, obviously, and with him just announcing the birth of his new Geordie Brazilian. So I think we need to get him signed up on a 30-year contract.
Yeah. Yes, I'm sure he will be, because, absolutely brilliant, that news, wasn't it? And that's the thing now. Will he be available tomorrow? Will he play tomorrow? Or do you think he'll be out the squad tomorrow? We don't know. I suppose he'll have a chat with Eddie Howe and see what's best.
Well, yeah. I've been speaking to people about, speaking this morning on Twitter about people and saying, it might not be his choice. His missus might need him, but it's not the Arctic ages anymore. Like, it's only in London. It will only take whatever. It's just whether or not if he's fully fit, as in refreshed, he's had enough sleep.
Yeah.
Everything's taken control, but I'm sure we'll find out tomorrow. If he doesn't play, then I'm sure that the team will still give we've got the structure and everything like that, which might actually fall in a good phase of, if you want us to go through why this season we're good under Eddie Howe, if you want, Tony.
Yeah, I'll just go through a few more comments, and then Mighty Max says, feeling sorry for Target, done out wrong, but can't get in, and he's been spot on. Yeah, it's one of them. It's just Dan Burns played well, so you don't change a winning team, really, and that's what Eddie Howe's done. Chip as says, wouldn't be surprised we go for a striker again in January. Well, yeah, nothing surprises us, does it, really, with, so yeah, that could be another point. Depends how Isak is. Paul says it's a good prompt to have, but yeah, it's a shame for Target. Yeah, absolutely, mate. Pablo says Southampton's third-rate manager. Yeah, he's not the best, is he? Man United have shown interest in Ivan Toney and Osimhen in January. Yeah, I don't think Ivan Toney will leave Brentford in January because I don't think they will let him. And if he goes to World Cup and plays well, and if also Ivan Toney scores, say, 15 to 20 goals this season, next summer his price tag is going to be massive. So,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't blame Brentford for that either. Mighty Max says Man City takes the lead against Brighton. Yeah, I like Coffee. Haaland.
Yeah.
Chipper says, yeah, Moshiri. Yeah, that's the name. Mighty Mag. Any truth that Gerrard had to get the team coach home after he got the sack? What atmosphere on the coach that would have been ideal for a stream online? I don't know. I've never heard anything like that. I don't know when he got sacked. I don't know if he got sacked straight after the game.
I read something that he got to a particular services, got off the coach, and then he just went somewhere else. So the coaches obviously took the players somewhere, and he's gone elsewhere. But yeah, I thought he might get the sack, but I think it's like if you're going to sack him, I thought it might happen like the morning after, or whatever, But
it's a bit ill-timed, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of them, and it's like it's never a good if you're not doing well. It's never a good time to get the sack. It's never a good time to make a difficult decision, and it's the owner's decision at the end of the day. Who are we to tell them? But I think it's I thought it might have been like, right, come and have a Zoom call or whatever it is the next day, and then the next morning get sacked. But I suppose you can go straight back home to Liverpool then.
Yeah, true. I like Coffee says Dean Henderson showed the Liverpool fans the finger at the end of the game. I didn't see the game, but if he did, well, I suppose that's rivalry, Man United, Liverpool. But yeah, a bit naughty though. But bit of shithousery as well, probably. Mighty Max says if the ground could hold 100,000, it would be a sellout. Yeah, I think it would be. Yeah, absolutely. And you probably still have a waiting list. Rowley says Killer was club captain when Keegan kept us up in the championship after the 90s and kept it and hardly played after that. Yeah, that's right, Rowley. And I mean, Killer was one hell of a defender. What a defender he was, But
when you talk about Rowley's right, when you talk about phases though in clubs,
yeah,
like at that particular moment in time, you needed a scary bastard who was at the back, and it just looked like. I mean, his beard was bigger than mine. Jesus. He looks like a beast now, but I think teams evolve, time moves on. And yeah, it's just one of them things with Lascelles that he's played at his level. I don't think he's ever going to get any better than what he actually is at the moment. And when you look at the people that we've got in that position that are challenging him, Dan Burn, Botman and Shaw, their stats are miles ahead of what his have ever been,
Yeah. I mean, I like Kilcline. I thought he was a hell of a defender. And yeah, he was brilliant. He did. I mean, I think we only paid like 250,000 from him. What a bargain that was at that time. Mighty Mag says, can see players like Bruno staying for life, like the old Liverpool with Russia, etc. Let's hope, yeah. I like Coffee. The media keep pulling us up for any mention of Saudi Arabia, even if we're going for training camps. Do you know what? It still falls down to jealousy. I said this last night on Pete's show. I said, at the end of the day, it's not just the Saudis. There's human rights going around everywhere in the world. And if the journalists are really good at digging up stuff, then why don't they dig into the history of Great Britain and have a look in our history deep down, where we were just as bad for it? So, it goes on everywhere.
It does. It does. I think the best thing that we can do though is just like don't shy away from any conversations. Because then that's when you see people put online, a definition of sports washing is look at these comments below, and there is some a bit odd defensive comments towards because it's Newcastle. But I think we just got to be realistic and open our eyes. And you're right, there is things happening all over the world, hundreds of years ago and into now. But I think it's just because it's obviously now, isn't it?
Yeah.
But hopefully, in terms of what they are doing, and hopefully over time things will get better.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I mean, it'll calm down eventually, but it's just one of these. We just look at it now and think, yeah, okay, that's somebody else having a go, but it doesn't bother me. Paul says players must get a massive boost off the crowd with all the songs, atmosphere. Going anywhere else, just St James's wouldn't compare to St James's. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I go back to when we played Arsenal at home last season. We won 2-0. When all the players come out the tunnel, and when everything was going on, the flags and everything, the cameras picked up Bukayo Saka standing at the end. He's not even looking at his teammates or anything. He's looking around the whole stadium thinking, wow, what the hell is this? As if to say, I've never seen nothing like this before, and that's an Arsenal player. So, and he must have been thinking to himself, I would love to play in this atmosphere every week if that's what it's like, yeah. And Mighty Mag said, excellent coverage by Amazon, also wore flags on Wednesday night. Yeah, I thought Amazon did a great job, because what I like about Amazon is, and I think the Pip Sky on this as well, and BT, because what Amazon done really well is, I know they have this little outdoor studio on the side of the pitch, but you had Eddie Howe came over for a talk. Yeah. Then Nick Pope joined him. They even replayed the Almiron goal back for Eddie Howe because he hadn't seen it again. And that's what I like about them. And then they brought up Nick Pope, and, he was talking. They were looking at his stats and everything. And I thought, you know what? This is brilliant.
Did you see what happened at the Brentford-Chelsea game?
No.
So they actually had both managers side by side interviewing them at the same time, and they both said things about each other's side, and I thought that was really good coverage to get an insight into what a manager will look for in terms of weakness of another side. And because they all use the same tools, analytical tools, and they pick things up, but I thought that was refreshing. So I agree. I thought the coverage, I don't know if it was because I was watching it through my Skybox, but my pitch of the Newcastle, the green on the grass kept on popping brighter and then going duller. So not all the time, but it was just noticeable when it happened. Then it went back. So I don't know if that was the Skybox doing it. I don't know if anybody else watched it just directly on Fire Stick or another means if they had any better. But yeah, I thought it was spot on. And I think I also like it as well, where you've got 4 or 5 games on at the same time, and you can actually choose which one you want to go and look at.
Yeah, I think that's great, isn't it? Giving you like a match choice, It's a shame we don't see it more often, isn't it?
Should happen anyway. This 3 o'clock blackout thing is a joke.
And yeah, it is.
Well, I think they've got a penalty now, actually, Man City.
Another one.
Yeah, Haaland's got a pen. So it looks like if he scores here, he's got 2. But yeah, I've just seen Chippers then saying it's remarkable that we've got 5 clean sheets already, and we only managed 6 all last season.
Yeah,
just unbelievable.
It just shows you how. It just shows you how much the defense has improved under Eddie Howe, and how, and it's not just a back 4; it's a back 5, because you've got Pope, Trippier, Botman, Shaw, and Burn, or / Target when Target's played. And it's just absolutely brilliant. Mighty Mag says with Amazon they showed war flags, Sky, BBC, etc. Always cover the flags with like team selection. Yeah, I mean, fair play to Amazon, they're showing and that as well. It's totally different. And I mean, it is a shame when they don't show the whole lot, because I mean, fans of other clubs can see what's going on at our ground. But
and not just that, if you look at what Eales said, and I don't know if you listened to the Eales interview on BBC, Radio Newcastle, but he was talking about involving fans that don't live in Newcastle anymore, like me and yourself, that feel we can only get to certain games whenever, or you've got the international audience. How do you tap into them to make them fall into the club, in love with the club like we did, because we're from the area and it's just, you're just born into that? How can we get that passion? And I think things like involving them with more media stuff and showing the war flags and the atmosphere and that it creates, because what you want to do is you want to bring that atmosphere back into your own house. Do you know what I mean? Or wherever you're watching the match from, you want to feel that atmosphere. I remember when I was younger watching Keegan, then Robson era, we would always go to the pub because we couldn't get to the games. We'd always watch them in the pub, but the pub was just bouncing. And it was unbelievable atmosphere, you know. And there's nothing better than enjoying a game and watching a good game and scoring goals and being amongst people that are just as nuts as you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just looked at the score there. The Mackems are unfortunately winning 2-0 against Burnley, which I'm surprised at, to be fair.
Yeah.
That's at it's at their stadium.
Where's it at? Is it at Sunderland Stadium?
Yeah. Yeah, so they're winning 2-0, Sunderland. 2 goals in 4 minutes.
That's my one of my good pals, Steve Patterson. If you're watching, hello. His nephew is in goal for them, Anthony. He's a Geordie, born and bred. But
all right,
this is hopefully what will not happen moving forward. So I know when he was younger, he had Newcastle looking out after him, but we have let lots of players leave the area, and I just hope now, as part of the infrastructure and what's going on, that it's not going to happen now. We're actually going to keep our local talent where it is, and then obviously bring talent in from other areas.
Yeah. LA Coffee says we realistically could challenge for the top 4. Do you know what I've always said? Let's see where we are come April, and if we're in the sniff of a top 4 place in April, I think Eddie will go for it, and I believe he would do. It's not beyond the realms of impossibility, because the way things are going this season, it's like an open Premier League, to be fair. You know, and I think when Arsenal City play, I think if Arsenal win that game, I think they could march on towards that title quite easily after that. But that all depends. That'll be one hell of a game to watch, though, and I think there'll be a lot of people watching that.
Yeah, I think the big thing for us about what you're saying about the top 4, if it doesn't happen, God, if it did happen, there's always a surprise package, you know, within challenging Leicester when they won the league, Ipswich all those years ago when they came up and they had an amazing season. I think they finished 3rd. Marcus Stewart used to bang them in for them. But if we're in and around, you know, the top 6, as I said earlier on, I think we will strengthen again in January. And it really does come down to a lot of people that I speak to and interact with on Twitter. They always say, you know, are we ever going to have our best 11 side out? Because we've got injuries, and this is what makes it even more special where we are at the moment. We're doing it with people missing at certain times. So
yeah,
I personally think it's a bit of a stretch for us to get top 4 this season, but I certainly think we should have the top 7 nailed, because the people that would have been challenging for that 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th spot, the likes of West Ham, yes, they're starting to get better results, but they're in Europe again, and then Thursday, Sunday games are a killer. Leicester have had a mare. Everton haven't been up there for a while. Villa have just sacked the manager. Wolves on the other bottom of the table. So all those sides that are established mid-season, mid-table teams are obviously further down, which gives us, with no European games, we can go in with our style of play that we are now, of being intense. We can do that, like week in, week out.
Yeah, absolutely. Mighty Mag says, Tony, you just spot my afternoon with that score of the unwashed lol. Sorry about that, Mighty Mag. Yeah, I'm surprised Burnley are losing, but there's a second half to come yet, so who knows? Paul says with stadiums being all seated now, it limits the amount of people who can go. The 3 p.m. blackout was to stop people sitting at home watching it when TV became available to households, and they were scared to lose money and revenue. Yeah, absolutely. 100% agreed. I like coffee with a top 4. And Paul's saying hi to coffee. Yeah, I think with what Paul's saying, because I mean, I can remember, I think back in the late 90s, Sky wanted to bring out what they call a season ticket. So you buy a season ticket, like you pay for it, and you can watch every game of your club for that season.
Yeah.
But then there was something happened, and that's when UEFA and everybody got involved and says, no, this can't happen. And clubs didn't want it at the time because they thought they might lose fans, you know.
Do you not think though, Paul? Like you see people's beef when they pay all this money to have Sky and BT and Amazon and all the rest of it, that everybody else in every other country can watch all of our games live week in, week out, 3 o'clock games. Yet the people that actually support those clubs in England can't watch them unless they do something illegal. And I just think it's it's just I get why the Premier League have done it as well, because they get that sponsorship money in. But surely for English fans, they should do something like you do. I know that in Serie A, in the past, I don't know if they still do it now, but I know when the likes of some of the top clubs, they would negotiate their own commercial like broadcasts where all of their games could be on TV and for people to watch. So it's just trying to find that balance, and I think it's probably just power, isn't it, from the greedy people?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it is. It's it just comes down to that, and it's unfortunate. There's nothing we can do about it, but there is ways and means of being able to watch stuff. But that's it at the end of the day. Yeah. Mighty Mag then says, it's mad places in like the USA, Australia, Asia can watch it live, but the UK gone crazy. Premier League losing a fortune would be a gold mine for them.
Yeah.
Pablo says, if you give me top 7 now, I'd be happy. I think we can make the Conference League. I know it's not the Champions League, but it's European football. Absolutely, mate. And I've said this from the start. I'll take top 7 now.
It's the next phase, Tony. It attracts, because you can offer European football, it can attract the next caliber of player. And it's the next brick in the foundations of building a sustainable football club that's going to consistently challenge top 4 Premier League title and the domestic cups and things like that. Because that Conference League, Rangers got to the final, didn't they?
Yeah, no, only lost to Eintracht Frankfurt.
So, I mean, yes, it's weird how they've added an extra tier of a European competition in, but if you win that, the next season you then go automatically into the European Cup, and then obviously if you the UEFA Cup or whatever it's called now, and then the one after that, if you were to win that, you then get a buy into the Champions League. So, it's just attracts better caliber of players.
There used to be 3 levels of Euro competition anyway, because you used to have the European Cup, then you had the Cup Winners' Cup, so people who used to win the domestic trophies, and then obviously you had the UEFA, the Euro.
They just mess around with it, don't they?
They do, don't they? Yeah, and then they scrapped the Cup Winners' Cup, and now they've brought the Conference League in.
I remember the bloody Anglo-Italia Cup or whatever it was called.
Oh, yeah, Intertoto Cup as well. We won that, didn't we? We were the last winners of that.
Yeah, Glenn Roeder.
We won. Yeah, what a legend he was, wasn't he? So you were going to say about Eddie Howe. So so what the difference this season is,
I've got some stats, and hopefully it backs up what we've been saying. So a couple of statistics here. It's the best start in 10 years in the Premier League for Newcastle. Yeah. Obviously, we've had a couple of seasons out when we've been in the Championship, but in the Premier League, it's the best start in 10 years. We've got the best defensive record, which is unheard of with Newcastle. The expected goals against in the games that we've played is 11, and we've actually only conceded 9. So when you look at the XG and all the rest of what the stats are, And some key things as well, and I'll go into why I think we're successful and how we've changed as we play now intense attack and pressing football. And let's go back. I know we don't want to go back, but let's go back to the Bruce Ball area so we can see the difference. So Steve Bruce would play a back three, and you would typically play a 5-4-1 formation. And if you look at the way that he was set up, it would normally be obviously a back five, and usually a back five again in front. So it would be a 10. But that would allow the teams to attack us with no real pressure, play through pockets of balls through ourselves, and things like that. And it was easy for teams for us to play against us then. And the only way that we might get a decent result is if we were relying heavily on counter-attacking football. Yeah. If you look at now with Eddie Howe, we've got a lot more attacking options and that's done by pressing. And there's two key aspects that you need for this to work, in which if you look at where Eddie Howe, when he took the side over, when we were talking before about the Cambridge, the Watford, the Norwich games, when we're going through that transition, you need fitness and you need coordination, something that we never did have under Steve Bruce. And that obviously goes down to the amount of days, that we had off. So in terms of where we are now, in terms of regaining the ball back in the attacking third, we've got we're the highest of any team in the Premier League. So we regain the most possession back in the third of any team.
Yeah.
And in terms of intensity, we're fourth. And I think it works out with something that's called PPDA, which is passes per defensive action. And we're fourth in that. So in those key areas of a high press that we play this season, that's where we are, and it all goes down to one thing, and that's intensity. So if you look at this attack pressing and how we press, Bruce had 20 passes per defensive action in 2019-20. In 2021, before he left, it was 24. So we'd actually got worse. And that reflects where we were in the league before Eddie Howe come. When Eddie Howe came in last season, he halved that from 24 to 12. So straight away, his organisation skills and training that he's doing on the pitch. You remember that video that was circulating at the time when he was involved in training, he was doing all this work and things like that. And then this season, it's 10.1. So again, this goes back down to why is Newcastle United better than what we were? Yes, we've got money. Yes, we've bought players, but ultimately we're much, much fitter, which enables us to counter press. And that is, in my opinion, is the reason why Newcastle are much better this season, is because of the counter press. And a perfect example of that is the goal that Bruno scored against Brentford. Because if you look at where we lost the ball, we then quickly harried the defender with three Newcastle players. Bruno won the ball back, and then they were all out of position because they had come forward, and then he had bags of room to just walk into it. And yes, it looks flashy, the goal that he scored, but ultimately that would not have been able to have happened if it's not down to the press.
No, absolutely spot on. But everything you've said there, I mean, I'll share this on screen now. I mean, this was brought up after that Brentford game via Match of the Day.
Yeah.
And Newcastle's intensity on there. High turnovers, 94. Shots ending in turnovers, 17. And then you've got next on the list, Man City. High turnovers, 87. And shots ending is 15. So we've got the highest in the league. I mean, even Liverpool are like fourth on that list. They're not even as good. So it shows you how much we've improved this season under Eddie Howe already. And, we're not even halfway through yet. And I just think that's absolutely brilliant. And when you see them stats, it just, and like I say, that's from the Brentford game. But, yeah, it's just absolutely brilliant
if
how well we've done.
There's some key. I've got some other strengths and weaknesses as well in terms of Newcastle. So what we're very strong at is was shooting from direct free kicks, aka thanks very much, Mr. Trippier. You know,
Yes.
the goal. So that makes us very strong in that area. Attacking set pieces in terms of corners and what leads to goals. We're very strong in that. We are good at creating chances through individual skill because we've got skillful players. Bruno, Saint-Maximin, when he plays, can do things off the cuff. We're strong at creating chances through balls, creating scoring chances. We're strong, and aerial duels. We're actually really strong at winning. And Botman at one stage had not lost an aerial duel. The madness, the one weakness that we've got in our team is avoiding offsides, which is a good weakness to have. It shows that we're in an attacking place, but the style of play that you see through is we're attempting loads and loads of crosses. We're attempting through balls. We attack through the middle. We like to play possession football, and we like to control the ball in the opposition. And when we do lose it, we then try and win it back in there as well. And I think if you look at which is really, really unheard of, but can you remember how much possession we would have under Bruce? It would be like high 20s. It would be, below 30. This season, after 11 games, and if you think of the teams we played, mate, Liverpool away, Man City at home, Man United away, right? That leaves 8 games. We've actually had a possession of 51% possession. And even though we've played those teams as well. So I just think it shows the leaps and bounds, where we've came.
We've just come on absolutely massive, under Eddie Howe, and it's like, and it's just amazing where we actually are, who would have thought it, who would have thought where we would have been.
Remember when he got the job, when people were saying, like Eddie Howe, like even Steve Bruce, the man that got Bournemouth relegated, other people saying he can't defend. You listen to Eddie Howe's interview, first interview when he got the job. He said he had other opportunities to join different clubs. He wanted to pick one, the right club that he felt was right for him, and 2, when he was ready to return to management. It's quite fascinating what he did in his time away from being a frontline manager, in the sense that he went all over Europe and he studied top coaches and top clubs like Simeone, who's the expert of shithousery in terms of how he defends and what he does, and he learns skills and tactics and things like that. And I'm not being funny, he's brought it back. Even Alex Ferguson said when he was at Bournemouth, he listed like top up and coming managers, and he at the time he said he thought Eddie Howe was one of the best young coaches that he's seen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not only did he go to, obviously, Simone, he went to see Sarri at Juve at the time when he was there, he even stood with Klopp on the training ground as well. So it just shows you how much Eddie Howe, wanted to improve as a manager. And he could have just sat back and said, I'll not bother, I'll just take a year out and just sit down doing nothing. But he didn't. He went out and about and learned his trade even more. And that's probably made him an even better manager than he was at Bournemouth, if I'm honest.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know how much of it's true, but when he went through the interview process for the role, they said it was unanimous from the people that were interviewing, in terms of the agency who was hired from the new owners, and also the new owners themselves, that Eddie Howe, he went away with a full plan of what he would do, in terms of who he would, what areas he felt he would need to improve, how he would change the style. He had it right the way detailed in terms of what it was, and by all accounts, they were blown away by how methodical he was in terms of his preparation about, and everybody thought that it was going to be the other guy who was going to get the Unai Emery. I mean, Jesus Christ, I thought he was that much. I thought that much he got the job, that I went and watched a bloody game Unai Emery what I thought was his last game in the Champions League or something, thinking, oh, what's he going to bring? But I think if he had have come in, I don't know if we would have actually have been able to have done what we've done.
Well, that's what I've said to people as well, because Unai Emery was wanted by Amanda and Jamie Rubin. They wanted him. PIF didn't want him. They wanted Eddie Howe.
Yeah.
But when it became clear that when Villarreal won that game that night, and then he got offered an extended contract by his club, it then switched the tension around. And even Eddie Howe said in his press conference last week, he said, when he was asked about Unai Emery, he did say, he said, well, he says, I thought he was nailed on for the job. He says, because I had an interview, but I knew Emery had been the one they wanted. He said, and once I knew he was going in for the job, I thought, oh, well, that's it. It's not me now, so I'll just wait till something else comes up. He says, and I'll not swear on here. He says, but as soon as Emery signed his contract and said, I'm not going now, he says, I sat at home and thought, oh, what do I do now?
Mm.
He says, and I had to all of a sudden start turning my attention like, oh, well, if I'm going to be in there, I need to sort, what am I going to do for sorting out? And he says, I was like gobsmacked when he signed that deal, stay for Villarreal. But, you know, he says things happen for a reason. And I mean, who would have thought this? I mean, I'll put this on screen a minute just to give people a bit of, but I mean, who would have thought this guy, back in his days as a Bournemouth player, would actually turn out to be a top-class manager? Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's amazing. I mean, he gave up his career when he was 29 and began managing then, didn't he, with Bournemouth? And
yeah, I think he was 30 when he took over, wasn't he? Or 29, 30. But it's mad to think that he's been managing now for 14 years already. And you'd like to think he could potentially have another 25, 30 years managing if he wanted to. He's just like I did say, I'm not just saying this now, but I did say when we didn't know that the takeover was going to happen and whatever, I was thinking like, if get Bruce out and get someone like him in at the time, I was chomping at the bit for him because I thought he would do a good job, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a place I used to work at, a lad had put, when I think Arsenal got rid of, I can't remember who it was now, they got rid of before Mikel Arteta came in, was it Wenger? And he said, he put a fiver on it, the time it was 40-1, he says, for Eddie Howe to be the Arsenal manager. And he said, I wouldn't be surprised if he's manager of Arsenal, but he didn't get the job. It went to Arteta instead. But, you know, it just shows you, you know, people say that and think, oh, well, actually, he would be a good punt there because they can see he's a young, enthusiastic manager and he can become this elite manager. And at Newcastle, he's getting that chance because we've got the money to spend. He can handle big players. You know, some managers you think, oh, well, can they handle the big players? Eddie Howe can do that. Tuchel started off at the bottom. Klopp started off at the bottom. He wasn't a top class manager. He brought Schalke up, I think, didn't he? And
you certainly got to do your apprenticeship, don't you? In terms of what it is. This is why I'm not keen on ex-pros who were decent players getting like high profile jobs pretty much like quite quickly. It happened to Lampard. Obviously, he went to Derby, then he got the Chelsea job, and now he's obviously at Everton. But you know, I'm not calling him because I don't like calling anybody, but I do think he's out of his depth in terms of he reminds us, and I hate to say this, but he reminds us a little bit of Steve Bruce in terms of the way Everton set up against us on Wednesday night. And fair enough, Gerrard went up to Scotland, and no disrespect to Scottish football, but it's not really, you know, it's kind of like getting your apprenticeship up there because other than Celtic, you've not really got anybody to fight against. But fair play to him, he won the league there and he took an opportunity to come down to Villa. And it's just not worked for him. I think he's just been a little bit found out in terms of, you know, what he can do and what his level is.
Yeah, Scottish football is just totally different, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's probably tough though, because teams probably set up to beat Celtic and Rangers by kicking lumps out of them and things like that. And it might be a bit unfair with teams might actually try and pass the ball around, but the standard of players that are up there isn't as it's probably on par with the Championship. You know, maybe lower end Premier League, but outside of Celtic and Rangers, there's probably not really many players that you would know that play for like some of the other clubs.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, and again, this is something else I'm going to share now on screen. Yeah, you know, you just get people like this who come out and they make absolute fools of themselves. So I've got that up now.
Oh yeah,
and Martin Samuel from last year. You know, Gerrard is ideal for Villa. He gives them more clout than he can be a game changer. Newcastle missed a trick. He could have been theirs. They had they been bold. And it wasn't the fact that we were being bold, but I think it was the right move, because I didn't want Gerrard at Newcastle, because I thought, no, I'm not really sure if he would be the right fit.
The thing is, there was always this thing that Gerrard was always teed up to be the next Liverpool manager after Klopp, right? Now, if he had to come to us, there's one thing Steven Gerrard probably does have over Eddie Howe, and that's a name, because of his playing career. That is it. From an ability perspective, how can Martin Samuel say he was a better choice? He would have been a better choice for us when he's supposed to be a pundit, when Eddie Howe brought Bournemouth up from near extinction right the way through all the divisions and spend 5 years in the Premier League or whatever it was. Whereas Steven Gerrard played, where Steven Gerrard went, he was a good player, but that doesn't, like Paul's just said then, that doesn't mean that you're a good manager.
No.
Is it Ancelotti? Is it one of the top Italian coaches? Never played football, and he ended up like winning everything. You know, you don't have to play the game to really understand what's going on. You know, you might have a certain way of playing. Yes, if you've got a career, I think it all goes down to being creative and using science a lot more as well, which obviously the top teams are doing a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can always remember when we played Alkmaar. So I'm going probably 2007, 2008 anyway. Could be before that. But anyway, when we played Alkmaar, we won at home 2-0. No, 4-2, sorry, at home. We won 4-2, sorry. And we won 4-2. And I remember a guy sitting next to me went, excellent this, he says, that's us through the next round. And I went, oh, I says, hang on a minute. I says, don't jump the gun, mate. He went, why? I went, who's the manager of Alkmaar? I says, Van Gaal. I says, I haven't been watching the more game. I says, but the times I have, I says, that man stood there with a clipboard constantly and he's writing everything down. I says, yeah, okay, we're 4-2 up. I says, well, we got to go away. I says, I wouldn't surprise me if Alkmaar beat us 2-0 and go through on away goals.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that'll not happen. That'll not happen. What happened? Alkmaar won 2-0. We went out on away goals. Because that man is a. I mean, yes, he went to Man United and he was okay-ish there, but wasn't the best. But Man U's probably a poison chalice. But you can see he's back in Holland now and he's doing well again, you know, and the man is a tactical genius. You know, he is a great manager. And, but yeah, you've just, people like that, you don't dismiss things like that. And what he would have done, he would have had us worked out and thought, right, okay, we keep it tight. We hit them on the counter. We take the 2 goals. We sit back. We stop them playing. We go through 2-0. We've won on away goals. And that's exactly what we've done.
I always think it's dangerous playing the first leg at home anyway. I'd rather play the first leg away, because then you know what you need to do. Unless you blow teams away 5-0, you know, but there is still that opportunity that a team could do you big time. So I've always thought in Europe, if you play away from home first, it's much better, because you know exactly what you need to do. And if you end up getting beat away, you know you've got to you know what you need to do, you know. So I think one of the guys just said then, looking at the chats, I like coffee. He's put, what are Gerrard's stats at Villa compared to Bruce and Dean? He's put Dean Martin to begin with when he realises Dean Smith. But obviously, like, Steve Bruce did play quite a lot of games in the Championship, so obviously you'd expect a club like Villa to beat a lot more. So actually, he did 102 games and he had a win percentage of 45%. Dean Smith as well, I think, was partly in the Championship, and then obviously got promoted. His win percentage was 41, but Steven Gerrard's out of 40 games, he won 13, drew 8, and lost 19, and he's only had a win percentage of 32.5%. So out of those three, he was the worst. But obviously, you have to count that they've got Championship in there, and they were at the time fighting to get up.
Yeah,
Chip has just, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, Chip has just said there, Burnley's got one back at Sunderland. Come on, Burnley, get another 2 and then you can win the game. And I mean, Mighty Mag says he was going to ask about the Intertoto, and he says, "Nah, beat him to it." LA Coffee says ESPN are reporting that Man United have received no interest in Ronaldo despite being available on a free transfer. Mighty Max says, "No way I take Ronaldo. Even 10 years ago, he's toxic. Yeah, his attitude's absolutely rotten. I mean, the way he walked off the other night was just disgusting." I think you'll if he does leave, and Brighton have scored as well, by the way. 2-1 now. I believe that if Ronaldo went, I think he will leave, and I think he'll probably go. If anywhere, he might go to the States, because with that level over there, the money that he'll be able to get, the lifestyle that he'll be able to get, he'll probably get another 2 years over there, and then that'll probably be him done. But yeah, I just think his attitude's all wrong for being such a top player. Yeah, and with what you were saying earlier about the start of the season, how good we've been, Paul says you make total sense on that one. Paul says, just because you're a good player doesn't mean you'll be a good manager. Absolutely. It's just, people think because you're a good player, you're going to be automatically a great manager. I mean, Shearer was sort of thrown in at the deep end by Mike Ashley, but he was thrown under the bus by Mike Ashley. Yeah. He couldn't do much, Shearer. He couldn't do nothing about it. The team was on the way down. So, it just compounded our misery when Duff scored that own goal against Villa, and it ultimately sent us down. Did you see that interview that Michael Owen did recently? Yes. About signing for Newcastle. I mean, he said that he had his professionalism and all the rest of it, and he ended up staying for however many seasons he did do. But for me, that said it all. That he agreed a release clause, if you like, or at least that if Liverpool came in from it's different times, like different seasons, the fee was set by Newcastle for him to go back to Liverpool. So really, for being someone that was like so set on leaving to go to Liverpool, when he eventually did leave us, he didn't sign for Liverpool. He signed for Man United, who's supposed to be their arch rivals. So I think going back to Eddie Howe as well, and the intensity and the mentality and the type of coach he is, he wouldn't have allowed. I don't think Shearer had the experience. Yes, as a leader, as a player, but he could probably grab people by the shirt and do whatever. As a manager, he probably thought he couldn't do that. And I think the dressing room was so discontent that you had a couple of mercenaries at the club who didn't give a shit that we went down. Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with that. So I think we'll go on now to the Tottenham Newcastle match tomorrow. I think it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a tricky game. Yeah, it will be. Tottenham got beat the other night off Man United 2-0. Fred scored a deflected goal, and then obviously Bruno Fernandes scored. I was surprised because I thought Tottenham would have been a tougher nut to crack, to be honest. I didn't think Man U would have won that game. I was expecting a draw, in all honesty. Yeah. or a Tottenham win. But I was a bit surprised by that. Were you?
Yeah, I think I was, and I wasn't, because Spurs have beat sides this season that you'd expect them to beat. But when they've played against the top side, so they got blown out of the park against Arsenal. They were getting battered by Chelsea and they scored a 95th minute equaliser. And then obviously they played Man United, and like Man United aren't brilliant. You know, they've been hot and cold so much this season. They just basically like rolled over, and I just didn't get it. And even Conte said himself, like, we don't play well against the top sides. So it's almost like if that particular plan doesn't work, you know, same critique, I think, of what the Man United fans were saying about their club now. If that first plan doesn't work, there isn't a plan B. And I think that's the thing with Tottenham as well. They've got some unbelievable attacking talents. But, you know, I think they're more of trying to be like us in the sense that we're quite watertight at the moment and work as a unit. But they don't have that. They don't have that transition from defense to attack as well as what we have. You know, so you know, I think it's going to be a tough game. It will be a tough game. But I would be delighted if we could get a point. If I'm being totally honest, I would love us to come back, because then if you look at who else we've got, we've only got one more game, I think, in October, which is Aston Villa at home. We could end up getting through October undefeated.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we look at it and think tonight we've got Chelsea versus Man United, Stamford Bridge. If that ends a draw, I know a lot of people are getting excited about this. If that ends a draw and we win tomorrow, we're fourth in the Premier League on goal difference. That would be fantastic, because not only would it be fantastic that we're fourth in the Premier League, but it would also send shivers through the big six, because, you know, they think they've got this divine right to do whatever they want in the Premier League. And we are going to upset the apple cart if we finish fourth tomorrow. But I'm happy to take a point from the Spurs game, if I'm honest. If a point's offered now, I would say, walk away with a point. I mean, if I was to pick a team tomorrow, this will probably be my team tomorrow, which has come along the screen now.
Burnley have scored.
Burnley have scored again.
2-2.
So, I've got Pope, Trippier, Shaw, Botman, possibly Bruno if he plays, Willock, Longstaff, Almiron, Wilson, and I would like to see Anderson in place of Murphy.
I would love to see Anderson play a little bit more than he's playing. The thing with Eddie Howe is what you've found, and you mentioned it earlier on about the club captain situation with the Lascelles. He's very, very loyal to a certain degree, especially with a winning side or a side that's doing well. But I think it's easier to make a change when a side's doing well, like one or two positions, tweaking them, than it is when you're not playing well, because then you're expecting that person to come in and actually like make a difference. If Anderson comes in tomorrow and we get beat, then it's not going to be Anderson's fault. You know, so I don't know. I think it depends if it all depends if Bruno's back. If Bruno's back, and also depends on Joe Linton as well. If Joe Linton's fit, because I don't know about you, Tony, but I'm not seeing the same Joe Linton that we've seen at the back end of last season yet. I think he's just like, he's ready to burst. He's still having an impact when he's played, but he's had a couple of games when he's been out. He's not scored this season. I think when he scored a couple of goals last season against Norwich, against Brentford, I think that really gave him that confidence that he could do that role, like that box-to-box midfielder.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. It's, you know, it's just, it's whether, you know, I mean, with Joe Linton, it's like the other night he told Eddie Howe he didn't feel right. He took a knock on his knee, and so they took him off at half time. At first when they'd done that, I thought, maybe for the yellow card, but obviously it was to do with an injury, so
Well,
that we
there
can
is a
see what
doubt.
happens with that.
Apparently, is a doubt. So it must have been genuine. But
Yeah.
people were saying on the commentary of the game when Joe Linton had got booked and then he went in and again, and that was more yellow card than his first one for me. I don't think he should have got a yellow card for his first foul anyway.
No, he shouldn't have. No.
Certainly that second one that he didn't get a yellow card for, that was a yellow card offence. And I thought like you, he's probably took him off because he was wanting to kill someone. And if it had kicked off, like it did do when Shaw went with that Gordon, who's just scored Everton's second, by the way, the winning 2-0. If he had been on the pitch, you know what he's like, he loves to get involved. It could have been getting the second yellow and being off anyway, and we don't really. I mean, going back to stats as well, Tony, for this season, like we've had 17 yellow cards in the Premier League out of 11 games, and we've not had a sending off yet. Trippier's got 2 yellow cards. Shaw's got 4, and Joe Linton's got 4. Bruno's got 1, and Sam Maximan's got 1. But we've been pretty okay. Dan Burn as well. He's received 2, but other than that, we've not really been getting very many yellow cards. To be fair, which is good. The discipline's there.
Yeah, absolutely. Chipper says Ronaldo to America with the Beckham's team into Miami. Yeah, probably. Yeah, Mighty Mag 2-2 for Sunderland. I like coffee. That Fabrizio Romano guy on John's channel that day did say Ronaldo to. Oh, that guy! What a muppet he was. He was up. Some of the stuff he was coming up, we were like, "What the heck?" You know. Paul says, "Good call, Tony, on the team." I like coffee. Bruno should score and do the baby celebration with the ball. Yeah. Do you know what, though? I think if he did play tomorrow, I think because he's become a dad, that would just give him even more motion to say, I want to score a goal today. You know, it'll hype him up even more.
Yeah,
and, you know, I wouldn't bet against Trippier scoring as well. A nice free kick as well. I mean, thing is, would Trippier celebrate if he scored, or would he just be respectful and say, I'm not going to celebrate, but, you know, we're ahead?
He damn right. I think he damn right would celebrate because he effectively got told to leave there. So, you know, he didn't do too bad, though, with his move, did he?
No, he didn't. No, not at all. I mean, Trippier has like took the mantle now from Ryan Taylor. I mean, Ryan Taylor was a right back, and he was good at free kicks, and then Trippier's come in, and you know he's done the same. But yeah, I mean, if I was to say to win tomorrow, I would say I would take a 2-1 win for us. With I would say Wilson and Miggy on the score sheet, definitely, because I think Wilson's due a goal because he's been a bit quiet.
Yeah, he is, and it depends if he plays though. It depends if he plays. Because 3 games in a week with his injuries. I think if you look at some of the games that we've played, I think he hasn't played the full 90 minutes. He has come off. Granted, he's maybe played 70 minutes or whatever. So hopefully, if he can do another 60, 70 minutes tomorrow, but I certainly believe for us to win tomorrow, we have to score first. I know it's obviously a cliche, but I think the way Tottenham's, as you said, I'd like to class us as a well-organised team now. And I'd like to class us as one of the better sides in the league. So really, we're similar to where they're effectively their rivals potentially in terms of where we are in the league at the moment. Because yes, Tottenham's on 23 points, the 5 points ahead of us. But like you said, a win tomorrow that drops down to 2. And if we were to win tomorrow, we'd have probably the same goal difference. So I think it's. I think if we can get an early goal tomorrow, I think we could get their fans on their backs. And I think they might go into their shell because they're not really playing amazing football against the organised sides. But they don't give up, though. That's the thing with Tottenham.
No, absolutely. They don't give up at all. Tottenham don't. But, you know, for them to draw a blank against Man United, you know, not very good for them, is it? But let's hope we can capitalise on them as well tomorrow. And I think it'll be a very attacking game between both sides. we just got to keep Son and Kane quiet, haven't we? And I mean, there's no Richarlison because he's out injured anyway. So as long as we contain them, which I think we can do. I mean, we've got we've got Botman. He's a Rolls Royce of a defender, by the way.
I think that's our strength, Tony. I think that's our strength. I think we someone said earlier on to me when I was talking about coming on this show and things like this about how much we've changed. And obviously, I mentioned about the stats that I mentioned, but having a solid back five, it does give the confidence in the other players to do that high press. And I think the unit, when we are attacking, when Dan Burn, he does either push forward, or if it's on the right hand side, he does drop in to make it a middle, like a front three. When Trippier's bombing forward, it effectively we're playing with a back three. So when teams can't really attack us quickly, like long balls, because there's three defenders there, the only thing that lets Dan Burn down a little bit on the left when he plays on the left-hand side is that he always gets skinned for pace. He's not slow. It's just because he's such a big guy, it takes him a while to get into his stride. But he is fairly quick. It's just obviously if you look at the Anthony game, obviously Anthony whipped it in. It just worries me a little bit sometimes that if he does keep on getting beat for pace, that may lead to a goal. You know, Burnley are winning 3-2.
They're winning 3-2, are they?
Jesus, man.
But yeah, I mean, if we were to change it tomorrow, then I would say maybe bring in Target over Burn, just to deal with the pace a bit. But Burn's done all right. He's been solid enough, and he's done the job that he's wanted. No, that Eddie Howe's kept faith in him for.
Just like Kieran Trippier's brought in that leadership style. I certainly think Dan Burn's done the same as well. And if you remember his defending against Chelsea last season when we got done by Havertz, who shouldn't have probably even have been on the pitch, like you see the goal that they scored when he just slumped down because he's a proper workhorse and he lives and breathes it because he's a Geordie himself, and he's been through all the divisions. So I think it's, whilst he does get skinned when he plays out of position, he is playing out of position, but he brings so much to the team. I think he's a little bit of an unsung hero. Yeah.
Mighty Mag says Burnley winning 3-2. Yeah, that's a goal from Anis Zaroury on 69 minutes. Mighty Mag also says, exactly, Tony, I reckon Bruno will be playing. He'll be high and buzzing, just what we need. And also says, makes an excellent change, seeing out goal difference being in positives and negatives. Absolutely. I mean, it's a long time since we've had a positive goal difference, I mean, some people used to criticise Rafa Benitez for playing too defensively against the likes of City, Liverpool, Man United and all this, but he did it for a reason, because like he said, Rafa, if we go, say, gun-ho against Man City and get trounced 5-0, that dents your goal difference. But if you go out and you play defensively and you only lose 2-0, your goal difference isn't really damaged too much. And that's, and that's the way Rafa played. And, it's fair play to him.
That was his style. That was his style, keeping it tight. He obviously, that was his way of doing it, where he would look at a game and be tactical in the game and try and nullify what better players would do against you. I don't think Steve Bruce really had an idea what his style was, apart from just sitting deep and then praying for a bit of magic from individual players. Whereas you look at Eddie Howe, and he's probably a little bit more on the front foot. But I know it sounds a bit weird what I'm going to say, but he's on the front foot from the back, in the sense that we attack, or we go defend much higher up the pitch now than we ever did.
Yeah, absolutely. And I Like Coffee says, don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. Thanks very much. I Like Coffee. And Mighty Mag says, Steve Bruce had no idea at all. No, Steve Bruce didn't have an idea. The only thing Steve Bruce is interested in is when he's at a club, wait until he gets sacked, get his compensation, and go on to the next victim. Hopefully, we don't see this guy in football no more. Hopefully, he bows out of it. Or hopefully, a club's actually got more sense and think, do you know what? We don't want him at the club.
I think when you look at all the clubs that he's been at, there's only one club that would probably take him back now, and that's Hull City, because they always say that he actually did all right for them. He got them promoted, and he had a relatively successful period of time there. Most other clubs, he's ended up either shafting them by leaving and joining another club, or he's been sacked because he's took them down. You know, I think football's moved on from those types of managers now. And I'm not being funny. If you're not prepared to put the time in from a training perspective, you get what you put into it. And I think he never really put anything into it at all.
No, he didn't. I mean, you know, he was like sixth choice to come to us, doesn't, you know what I mean? And it's like, he should never have we should never have even offered him the job. I mean, I don't even know what Mike Ashley was thinking when he offered him the job.
That's what he was thinking.
You know, yeah, exactly. And he was just an awful manager. And I'm just glad he's not at our club no more. And, you know, and look what he'd done to West Brom as well. I mean, you know, they shouldn't be in the bottom end of the championship. They should be at the top end challenging. When he took over, they were in the playoffs, and look where he's done to them. So,
I know.
Yeah, absolutely awful of a manager. Mighty Max says, no disrespect to Hull, but that's Bruce's level. Even that's being generous. And I Like Coffee says, Steve Bruce's formation resembled a kebab instead of a parked bus. Yeah, I mean, well, training ground, for instance, it was just like stood there with his hands in his pocket, chuck the ball in the middle and say, have a game of football, lads. And that was it. You know, that was his training sessions. And when Eddie Howe come to the club, he said those players were 60% fit. So no wonder we were getting rolled over. No wonder West Ham beat us 4-2.
Well, this is the thing what I said to you before. Like I've got it wrote down, and I've got a couple of things why we're doing really well. I've got a couple of things here that I've put in bold and in brackets, and one of them's intensity and one of them's fitter. We're much fitter. You know, you can't do high counter press and have that recovery possession of winning the ball back quite high up in the third if you've not got that. I've seen a couple of clips against the last game of the old regime against Wolves away, and you look at the press, every now and then you were getting Sam Maximan running like a headless chicken after the ball, which gets the fans excited because they say, oh, look, someone's actually making an effort. But there was no real thought process behind that chasing. It was just someone sporadically running after the ball thinking, oh, I need to try and close this down. You fast forward that now to the way that Eddie Howe's team puts it in. You've got them front three pressing. And as I said to you before, the perfect example was that goal against Brentford. You had three people swarming around them, take them off the ball. We did it plenty of times against Manchester United. We've done it plenty of times against Man City, who are masters at it, by the way, because that's how Pep was brought up at Barcelona. Yeah. They had a philosophy at Barcelona where you have, I think it was 5 seconds or something like that to win the ball back. So this is the mentality that they had.
Yeah. I Like Coffee says, Tifo did a very good breakdown of Bruce and Eddie Howe's Newcastle.
It did, because that's where I got a lot of my research from, to be fair. And they are really good. I like those videos that they do because they do visual presentation of what it looks like. Because it's all well and good, me and you talking about like what we think, but when you can physically see it happen in front of you, that's when people can go, oh, yeah. So if anybody hasn't seen that, go and have a look at it on YouTube, T4 Football. There's a nice little clip in there about Newcastle. It's about 15 minutes, and it shows you the intensity that I was talking about on Bruce, where it was right the way down the bottom in terms of the defence, whereas up with Eddie Howe, it's skyrocketed.
Yeah. Bruce, Paul says 5 passes to get the ball back at Barca.
Yeah. Very good goalkeeper, Mr. Scott is, by the way. I know who it is. Very good goalkeeper.
Yeah.
But I think going back to the match tomorrow, I just think if we can play like we have done, all season and last season as well will give Spurs a game. And as long as we're competitive and we don't get overrun like we did in the last game, we played them down there when we got beat 5-1, and I went on the Athletic and the Athletic, they have a live chat afterwards, and I just said there just was a huge gap in the center of midfield where their fast players like Son and everybody else was just running through, and that's I always used to slate. That's why I used to slate Shelby for, because he hasn't got the legs, and he's the midfield. You need players who have got the legs around Shelby because he can pick a pass out, and it'll be very interesting when Shelby comes back into it, because under Eddie Howe, he did start to play really well, and he was using his brain a bit because he can pick out a pass, but it's just whether or not he's got the concentration levels to be at that, because the team in itself has evolved this season. He hasn't really played, but it's a nice problem to have. There's someone that can come in and do, ultimately do what Bruno does.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like Coffee says we won't see Richarlison diving in that next tomorrow. Whew. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, and I'll just finally show this before we wrap up. And I mean, this is we said this during the show, but I just thought I'd share it again. There we are. There's Bruno with his baby and his partner, and
I mean, I don't know if you've seen the other picture, mate, but it shows you his face, and he's just got tears in his eyes, and he's just like so passionate and so buzzing. And I'm a father of girls and children myself, and that was probably one of the best days of my life in terms of seeing your kids. So, fair play to Bruno, and I just obviously, if he plays, he plays. If he doesn't, he doesn't. That's entirely up to the club and entirely up to him. But if he doesn't play, then so be it. But I wish him all the best, and hopefully, like I said earlier on, we can get a 30-year contract out of his laddie.
Yeah, let's hope. Let's hope we do. I mean, they're probably home now anyway, and so yeah, I would imagine.
We've got the right owners. We've got the right owners.
You have.
And if Bruno needs to be on a private jet tomorrow to get down to the game, it'll happen at the end of the day. We can get him there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I like Coffee says Gordon made me mad in the last game. Yeah, he's awful. I'm glad we didn't sign him, to be honest with you. And he says, I like the baby hoodie. Yeah. The green hat they put on, it's that just means the baby's fine to go home.
Yeah.
Mighty Max says Douglas Luiz is banned for our game against Villa. Yeah, because he got the red card, didn't he?
He's not. They've challenged it. He's got away with wrong dismissal, wrongful dismissal. So apparently he's actually he's okay to play. But I'd rather play their best players though. At the end of the day, you don't want any excuses. And I'm glad that I know obviously yourself and other people have been saying the hope Gerrard still stays on, gives us a better chance. I'm glad he has gone. I'm glad he has gone, because now if these are going to have a bounce back, then we'll have to be on our game. And I think Eddie would use that as his own, his own take on, you need to be switched on now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Mighty Max is, sorry, I take that back. Paul says Newcastle as a team are in a good place with the team and staff, a good base to improve, win leagues and trophies in the future. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my prediction at the start of the season, I know some people may think, a bit weird, but it wasn't, because what I actually said was, if I had, from this season, I would like to see us finish 7th in the league and to win the Carabao Cup, because that's not beyond the realms of impossibility, because a lot of teams don't play that big teams in them. So there's a chance. And remember, a couple of years ago, we got all the way to the quarterfinals. But, had that been under Eddie Howe, we may well have got the final. But, we had Bruce in charge and we got beat off Brentford. We wimped out of that trophy. But under Eddie Howe, it'll be totally different. And we can beat Palace at St James's Park, because they won't bring a big following. Plus, they won't bring their full team anyway. Yeah, it's on a Wednesday.
So yeah.
I can't see them playing that full strength side. And I still think we'll have enough to beat them. I think Karius will probably make his debut in goal for us that night as well.
I think we probably end up making it. Yeah, I think we probably might make a couple of changes as well. But let's see where we are from an injuries point of view, because the good thing for us, I think, when we look at it in terms of where we could finish this season, we've got, I think we've got 5 games, including the cup game, left until the World Cup's on. So I think we've got obviously Tottenham tomorrow. We've got Villa, we've got Southampton, we've got Chelsea, and we've got Palace. So those are our games before the World Cup starts, and then before the transfer window's open, we then go away. I think we go away to Leicester on Boxing Day. I think it is.
Yeah.
So we've got 6 games now until the transfer window's open. So if we can get a realistic, say, 9-10 points out of those. I mean, obviously you can't get points out of the cup game, but if we go through, that's great. But out of those 4 games, if we can get, say, 10 points, then I think, no team alike coming up here, up at St. James's, no team alike coming up there. So
no team alike facing us.
Yeah. So even though we beat them last season, we've always had a bit of a dodgy time at Southampton over the years. Yeah. So even though they're not playing that well, it still could be a banana skin. Tomorrow's going to be a tough game. Then you look at your other 2 home games. You've got Villa going to get a new manager, or at least they might have a caretaker manager in charge. And you've got Chelsea, who have spent like nearly 300 million quid and are a bit. And they've got Potter, who's a great coach. So I think if we can get 10 points out of them 4 league games, then I think that will be a great return. If we remain unbeaten, I'll be ecstatic. But just have to take each game as it comes, I think.
Yeah, that's all we can do, basically. Just take each game as it comes and see what we get out of them games. And if we go to the World Cup break and we've only lost 1 game, then happy days. I'm happy with that. I like Coffee says, did the Henderson issue at Arsenal get resolved? I'm not sure. I don't think I've seen anything on that. But what I want to go back, the Douglas Luiz thing, I'm surprised. Well, if it was wrongful sending off, then surely why didn't VAR intervene in this and get it overturned?
God knows. I don't know. I think it's. I don't know. I thought the VAR thing. I wasn't sure if it was. I don't know if you could go back for that, because I think it's a bit weird with VAR, because they didn't even go back to check, or they didn't tell the referee to go and check the potential penalty against Man United, because they're saying, like Dermot Gallagher said, it was weird what he said on Sky, because it was a foul, but then he said because the referee didn't give a penalty, then VAR wouldn't have overturned it. However, if he had to give a penalty, then they would have intervened. So I just don't get the grey areas around VAR, because VAR's there, the right decision.
Yeah, it should be there to say, look, go and check it. I think that may be a penalty. If it works well in the World Cup, it works well in the other leagues. It's just our league. We just seem to have a problem with it. And, and that's why we've got no VAR refs going to the World Cup, because we're just so poor. And I like Coffee says, I just hope Rodgers is Leicester manager when we play them. No, now look, he'll get sacked before we play them. Well, yeah.
On the bottom of the league now, because Forest won.
Yeah, so they're on dodgy ground, Leicester are, and this is their worst start since 1983. And when they've done this 1983, they went down. So this could be a season they go down as well. So who knows? It could be
you look at Leicester; it's a bit odd. It's been a great couple of years for them, and their fans must have been on such a roller coaster. Premier League winners, FA Cup winners, been in the Champions League, but just before that, before they won the Premier League, they just survived that season. Then obviously Ranieri comes in, and obviously with the squad they had, it was unbelievable. And obviously they've had a relative of success, being top 7. And then now because they haven't done it properly with financial fair play, or they've been they've had a little bit of unluckiness. Obviously, the owner, who was probably invested in Leicester a lot, who obviously sadly passed away in the helicopter crash. Like, his son's coming it now, and there's rumours that the family are trying to sell the club now. So, it's just, I suppose we're trying to build a sustainable model and doing it pillar, like you say, pillar by pillar, brick by brick. And, we need to absolutely make sure that we, I think we've got all the right people in place now from a board level. And I think I can see us going from strength to strength. I can definitely see one of those Amazon documentaries happening at Newcastle, only because apparently Saudi Arabia and that Jeff Bezos, is it? The Amazon guy.
Jeff,
they because there's a documentary on Netflix or Netflix now or Amazon now or something about that journalist that got killed, and it's about Mohammed bin Salman. It's about him. So I think if they will only do that documentary, Newcastle and the Saudi Arabian part owned PIF will only allow that to happen if there's no reference to any of that within the, there's no reference with anything to do about Saudi Arabia. But I think that would be Newcastle's not a club, even when they've been playing poorly, Tony, and when they've had Mike actually involved. Sky Sports and they needed Newcastle in the Premier League because there always was a story, wasn't there?
Oh, yeah, but it did come out in the CAT hearing from the lawyer who was working for me, Ashley, Daniel Jowell, about, because he was the anti-competition lawyer, one of the best in the country.
Yeah.
Behind Robert O'Donoghue. He actually said to the judge and to that guy from the Premier League, and the guy from the Premier League, the solicitor from there, couldn't deny it. He couldn't say nothing. And he said, well, 6 months ago, the Premier League wanted to kick Newcastle out. They didn't want them in there because of all this with the Saudis. They didn't want them taking over. They didn't want this happening. And they wanted to kick Newcastle out of the Premier League. And when you heard that, you thought, this is just so wrong how the Premier League can be like this,
Yeah.
By the way, Chip, as I just said, 4-2 to Burnley now. They've really turned that around in there. Josh Brownhill with a goal for them. Mighty Max says, nice one, Chip, as Paul says. Don't think Leicester can afford to get rid of Rodgers with his wages and compensation. Mighty Max says, will UFC have to approve the edited version if there's a TV program in the club?
Massively.
Yeah. LA Coffee, apparently a journalist asked Rodgers that question about Leicester not being able to afford sacking him, and Rodgers just walked out. And Mighty Max says, Chip has love it. Yeah, I think, well, there's rumours going around. I think it's 25 million to get rid of Rodgers, but I don't know how true that is.
Well, if you look at their next couple of games, they've got a winnable game away to Wolves tomorrow. Wolves are not playing great, and they've just announced that Steve Davis is there till the end of the season, so that gives them a bit of stability. Then they go away. Then they play at home against Man City, which Man City, you'd expect them to win that. And then they play away to Everton. And then just before the break, they're away to Leicester, and they've got Newport in the cup in amongst that. But that's a tough run of games, that, for Leicester.
Yeah.
So they I mean, even if let's say they beat, let's say, for instance, they beat Wolves tomorrow. Yes, that'll take them out of the bottom of the league, but you could probably see that one being a draw. You'd probably see them getting beat off. They'll get beat off Man City. The way Everton are playing, yes, they don't score loads, but they're hard to score against.
Yeah.
And then they play away to West Ham, so they could be in real trouble by the time the World Cup comes. And like the guy said there, will Rodgers still be in charge by then?
That's the thing, yeah, will he?
Because the World Cup's on, yes, a lot of clubs will go probably warm weather training camps and things like that, like what we are and Liverpool are doing. But it gives clubs that if they are going to sack a manager, they've got a 5-week period or whatever it is before the Premier League kicks back off again, where they can get a new manager in and they can work with the team. You know, that you might probably see that if he's going to get the sack, you know, it all depends on results, but it'll probably happen before the World Cup starts.
Yeah, I mean, it must. I mean, when you look at Wolves, like they sacked the manager, and then they tried to get Lopetegui. He said no, and then they must be really embarrassed when they've gone to QPR and said to the head coach Michael Beale, "Do you want to come and become our manager?" And then he says no, and you know, and you think, well, hang on, he could go from the Championship to the Premier League. But I can see why he's staying there, because he's got QPR so high up. He wants to get them into the Premier League. So yeah, he's probably thinking, well, I'm not finished my business here. And you know what? That's fair play to him. But as a club, Wolverhampton Wanderers must be sitting there thinking, this is embarrassing. Even a Championship manager's turning us down, you know?
The thing is, though, like, I think that's perfect, because look what we said earlier on about Gerrard and we said earlier on about Lampard. These guys have been found out a little bit. You've got to do your apprenticeship, like what we said about what Eddie Howe's done. Fair play to this guy here. He's comfortable where he is. He got QPR top of the league. I don't know if they're still top of the league now. I can check that, but he's got them up to the top of the league, and they're playing for him. He doesn't need that extra pressure. They're winning 2-1.
Top.
They're winning 2-1 against Wigan as well. So, like, with all due respect, Wolves could drop down. And remember when someone made this sarcastic comment? I think it was Chris Sutton on BT Sport. He turned around and he said, oh, no, it wasn't. Sorry, it was Robbie Savage, who's friends with Bruce. He said, oh, wouldn't that be funny if West Brom got promoted and Newcastle went down when we got rid of him and he went to West Brom? You know, this could actually happen now, where Wolves go down and the QPR actually get promoted, and then he's made, obviously, the right decision for himself, hasn't he, at the end of the day?
Yeah. That's sitting top of the league, QPR, on 30 points.
They are, joint top with Blackburn. I don't know if that's been updated, but yeah, that joint top of the league. So, and then obviously Burnley are beating Sunderland, another game in hand. Sheffield United, who lost the other night. I don't know if they're winning now. They're 2-2 in Norwich. 2-2 in Norwich, yeah. So yeah, well, but 4-2 Sunderland, let's say Sunderland are getting beaten. They're just dropping like a stone. Sunderland are only 4 points off. I mean, I know it's only 4 points, but they're only 4 points out of the relegation zone, sitting in 13th spot. They just drew too many games.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just crazy, isn't it? But just go through a couple of comments here. Mighty Max says, and another defeat for West Brom now, second bottom, very worrying for them all due to one man. Yeah, and he says, I'm shocked Rafa hasn't took a job either. West Brom or Wolves would be ideal for both clubs, but would Rafa take it? I doubt he would. Certainly wouldn't go to West Brom, and would he go to Wolves? I don't think he would take the Wolves job.
If Rodgers got the sack, he might take the Leicester job.
Yeah.
But
he might do.
But but the thing was, when he got the Everton job, obviously he wanted to be closer to Liverpool, because obviously he's still got a place there and all the rest of it. He still lived in the area. But he went into Everton knowing that he didn't have a lot of money to spend because of the financial fair play. Leicester's in exactly the same position now, where they need to sell. And that's why come January, if Maddison and if Tielemans on signing new contracts, they might take money for them, because next season, Maddison might only have 12 months left or whatever, but Tielemans will be out of contract.
Yeah, absolutely. James is on. He says, hi, Tony. Hope all is well. Glad to see you on here. Nice one, James. Thank you very much. Mighty Max says, that's ideal. That's an idea. Call about the Leicester job. Yeah, I mean, it's strange. I mean, could Rafa walk into the Leicester job? It
depends what his appetite is, isn't it, in terms of getting back into it. It depends what he's got, because you wouldn't probably want to go back into a job where he had the same scenario where he won't get the hostility like he did at Everton, but in terms of spending him and giving him the autonomy to do what he wants to do, you know. God, this guy was at bloody Napoli and Real Madrid and obviously being at Liverpool, where he was able to bring his own players in, where he ended up having a couple of clubs there where he couldn't spend any money.
Yeah, so, definitely.
But yeah, you've also got Sean Dyche still out of work as well. Like Coffey, you know, he's out of work still, and he's one of those types of managers that, you know, you want in amongst it and who could get you out of trouble. So has West Brom replaced Bruce yet or not?
No, not as far as I'm aware.
Well, they've been beat, like I said, they've been beat today, and that Sean Dyche might be good for someone like that. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Apparently, the Plymouth manager's been linked with West Brom.
Oh.
Stephen
I can't see him going.
Yeah.
If they're top of the league, I can't see him going either.
Yeah. Well, that's what they're probably going to do. You said before, why did Mike Ashley get Steve Bruce? Because he was cheap at the time. If these clubs are going for managers that are up and coming, that are doing a good job in the lower division, the compensation won't be as high, and they'll probably be able to give them a little bit of a lesser salary, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been a great show. We're going to wrap up there. And Mighty Max, I like Coffee's just said, Bruce can change Liverpool's fortunes. Klopp out. Mighty Max says, good shout. I like Coffee. Yeah, that would be hilarious, wouldn't it? But yeah, it's been a great show over 2 hours, and we've gone through a lot of things about hasn't it just? We've gone through a lot about Eddie, and you know, everybody's happy about how the club's doing. Do you want to give a shout out where people could find you on social media, Carl?
Yeah, well, it's in my name tag there. If anybody wants to follow us, it's just at Jody Carl on Twitter. And yeah, this is I've done this before, but on different sports. So it's good to actually be talking about a sport that I actually love and a club that I love. So it's been thanks for having us, Tony. It's been great.
No worries, mate. It's been lovely to have you on. And then, people know where they can find me on Twitter, TonyTooney31, and also on my brand new channel, which has now started. And hopefully it's liftoff now. And I like Coffee says, bye, Tony and Carl. Awesome first show. Thank you very much.
Cheers, guys.
Paul says, amazing show, lads. 2 hours flew by. Thanks very much, Paul. James says, I'm going to have to watch back from the start while I'm working. Good show, lads. Thank you very much, James. Rolly, 2 hours well spent. Fantastic show, guys. Cheers, Rolly. And I like Coffee. Let's get Tony to 100 subscribers by next week. That'd be lovely. Thank you very much, I like Coffee.
Tony, can I ask a question? Is I like Coffee your kid or something? Is he a family member because he loves you?
No, because he goes on John's as well, so he knows me from there as well. So, yeah.
Sorry, I like Coffee. Only messing.
No, that's fine. No, he's a fantastic guy in the chat, and he's always in first as well. But
hopefully everybody can watch it back on YouTube. And then obviously you can get more followers, mate.
Yeah, absolutely, and so later on, if anybody's watching, but PD Proudluck's doing a show at 7:00, which I'm going to be on, doing a preview for tomorrow's game. So if you want to jump over there at 7:00, I'll be on there with him as well. I like Coffee, and he says, we're all family at Newcastle United. Absolutely, mate. Yeah, we're all united as one. So thanks very much for coming on, Carl. I'll catch you backstage, and thank you to everybody who's come on and watched. And please like and subscribe and help the channel grow. Unfortunately, I haven't got my intro and outro at the minute, but that will come, so I'll have to close with the countdown. But thank you very much, guys, and see you again.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.